Well, the governor is encouraging Coloradans to stay close to home for the holidays. Thanks to everyone's hard work, the state did not see a large spike in coronavirus cases post-Thanksgiving, and the hope is to keep it that way into the new year. Joining me now is CBS 4 medical editor, Dr. Dave Hnida. Good morning, Dr. Dave. We appreciate you joining us.
Hi, Don.
So my first question is, what's your message to people who think they could let their guard down for Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah, it's interesting because we were expecting this great big surge after Thanksgiving, and it really was a no surge situation, which is really great. But I really think it's important for people to pat themselves on the back and say, yeah, we did a good job over Thanksgiving, so we didn't have a surge. But on the other hand, I think we also need to realize that we're still not in a great place right now. Our hospitalization rates, for example, are still way up there. They are beginning to come down, but we are still well above where we were at peak capacity back in the spring. So we're not out of the woods there. The number of cases are still well above normal, and our test positivity rates are still abnormal. They have come down, and they're running about in the 7 to 8% positivity range at this point in time. But nonetheless, we like to see that number below 5. I think a lot of people are saying, well, everything's going better, so we can just disregard any precautions that we need to take. But you need to also recognize that in many ways, there's a lot of other things that are not so good going on around the country. Colorado is an island in terms of how well we are doing relative to other states. So if you are planning on travel, I would rethink those plans, because the rest of the country is essentially one giant hotspot surrounding us. I think that many people are also looking at the fact that there's vaccine good news that is out there now, and say, well, we can relax a little bit. We can't. We cannot afford to have a post-Christmas. We cannot afford to have a post-New Year's surge. And so we still are hitting hard with that message. Please mask up, socially distance, just practice good hygiene, and your household should be limited to just that, your household, when it comes to the holidays.
Dr. Dave, this morning we reported that a new strain of the virus has been discovered in the UK, and it's one that's apparently even more contagious. Is it here in the US? Is the vaccine going to work against it? What do people need to know?
Yeah, a lot of people have some concerns out of the reports coming from England, specifically London. The southern part of England is reporting a new mutated strain that just is scary sounding. And so some quarantines are coming into effect. And the big thing to recognize with this is the fact that it is not just strictly limited to England. It has been reported in Belgium, in South Africa, and in some other countries. So the first thing you have to say is, well, is this really an unusual thing to have a virus mutate? And the answer to that is no. This virus has already mutated dozens and dozens of times since it was first isolated. And so viruses typically do that. And so it's not necessarily alarming, but it does deserve that we keep a close eye on what sort of mutations are taking place. And then you say, well, is it deadly or is it more contagious? Well, right now the numbers are not reflecting that it is more deadly than any other strain of COVID that's out there right now. And in terms of contagiousness, that's not really been proven either. In fact, when you look at what's going on in England with this, England, particularly London and the southern part of England, is one big giant hotspot. And this is the particular strain that is out there that is causing a lot of cases. And it has not been proven in a lab setting that this particular mutated strain is more contagious. In fact, many scientists do believe that, in fact, it is really more behavior driven in terms of what is going on. People are just not practicing the precautions that have been advocated. So that may be the reason why it seems more contagious. And then you have to ask yourself, well, is it in the United States? And odds are it is. I mean, we think that what's going on in England actually was first discovered probably about 3 months ago. So it's been out there, and odds are it has traveled to other places. And it's not surprising that it would not be in the United States at this time. And then it comes to the big question, all right, does that mean that all this vaccine good news that we're hearing is really not so good news because the strain is not going to react to a vaccination? And that's not the case. We think that this vaccination will cover this type of mutation as well as other mutations that have taken place over the course of the past year. So I think that we can continue to proceed with our vaccination program. And, you know, it may wind up turning out to be a situation where we do need to do a booster shot at some point down the line. But at this stage, the current vaccines has not shown to be a problem when it comes to dealing with this new mutant strain.
Speaking of vaccines, the Moderna vaccine was just approved by the FDA. Is there a difference between that one and the Pfizer vaccine?
I think the most important thing to recognize is they're both very effective and they are both very safe. And it is more of the subtleties that really kind of play into this whole thing when you look at Pfizer versus Moderna. If you look at the Pfizer vaccine, it is a vaccine that's given in 2 doses, 3 weeks apart. It is approved for people age 16 and above. If you look at Moderna, it is age 18 and above, and those vaccines are given in 2 doses, 4 weeks apart. So kind of a subtle deal there. Big thing to know is that you can't mix and match your vaccine. In other words, if you're going to get Pfizer vaccine, you're going to get your booster shot as a Pfizer vaccine. Same with Moderna. I think the biggest thing, though, to take a look at is the storage and distribution of the vaccine. Moderna is going to be a lot easier because the Pfizer vaccine does involve the need for special handling. It needs ultra cold freezers, for example, but yet the Moderna vaccine can be stored in a simple everyday refrigerator. And that means it's going to be more accessible to people. It's going to be more accessible to rural areas, and it's going to be more accessible to places like clinics and doctor's offices as we go down the line over the course of the year. So even though there are some differences, some of those differences are subtle, some are important. Either way, we've now got 2 vaccines. We're expecting a third. The news just continues to look good.
And as far as those vaccines go, are there any possible side effects with both vaccines?
You know, we know just like a flu shot, there are vaccine side effects, and most of those side effects are minor. In other words, sore arm, maybe you feel a little bit off for a day or 2 after you get vaccinated, maybe a little bit achy, maybe low-grade fever or something along those lines. But we believe that those side effects are actually your immune system kicking in and showing a response to the vaccine. So any side effect like that is actually a good thing. And we do think that any reactions that do take place, like the flu-like symptoms, are going to be a little bit more pronounced when you get your booster shot down the line, because your body will already be primed up to react to a vaccination. Let's talk about more serious reactions, specifically allergic reactions, because in the United States, there have been 5 known cases of serious allergic reaction, including anaphylaxis. That means when your throat winds up swelling up and you can't breathe. And those people did require medical care. And so the advice is that if you have a history of allergies, it is very important to talk to your doctor and make sure that the appropriate precautions are taken and that you are comfortable with getting the vaccination. Once again, though, it's something that you need to discuss with your doctor. And finally, on that point, these are not drive-through vaccines. We monitor everybody for side effects. Possible allergic reactions are going to take place within probably 15 to 20 minutes after a vaccination. These serious side effects don't occur days later. They are immediate. And so each place that's administering the vaccine right now is prepared for anyone to possibly have a potentially serious reaction. But at this point, the risk of that serious reaction is estimated to be at about 1 in 1 million.
Good to know, Dr. Dave, as always. Thanks so much for being with us. Of course, we're going to have plenty more questions for you next week.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Well, remember, you can catch all of our Dr. Dave segments anytime at cbsdenver.com. We'll be right back.